Hi everyone, welcome. Before we get started, I just wanted to thank Skagit Regional Health for sponsoring this class and then Stilly Valley Health Connections for hosting the class. Shout out to Christina doing all the Zoom things. So my name is Anka. I'm a registered dietitian with a practice called Sound Dietitians.
And I'm Zainab. I'm a dietetic intern. I'm a student currently, and I'm working with sound dietitians for the week. And I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so today we're talking about comfort meals. So comfort meals mean different things for different people, right? Depending on what you grew up with, cultural foods, preferences, right? A lot of times, what I see though when I talk to people about comfort meals is usually it's something that's warm, hearty, flavorful, something like a soup or stew. Um, so that's kind of what we're making today. So we have three different recipes we'll be preparing. We're going to start with a congee. One of the toppings for the congee is going to be a fried shallot. So that's one of the components of the congee. We're also going to be making a vegetarian shepherd's pie. So at home, you don't necessarily need to keep this vegetarian. You can use meat if you wanted to, but we're going to be using lentils instead of meat for this preparation. And then we also have a lemon herb vegetable soup that we will be preparing as well. So we're going to start with the congee. So I'm just going to swap spots with you, Zainab. I have a large pot going. I'm going to add a little bit of oil to this. So what is congee? Congee is basically a rice porridge. You typically make it with either sushi rice, which is a shorter grain rice, or with a long grain rice. So we have jasmine rice today. And we're going to cook it until it breaks down, until you basically can't see the grain of rice anymore. It's going to be just cooked down very finely. But we're going to start with adding garlic and ginger to our pot. Let me just grab a spatula. One. So our garlic and ginger are going to be our aromatic component to this dish. It's going to give you a lot of flavors. Also, congee is just a really great recipe to make if you're not feeling well, if you're under a lot of stress. Congee is really easy to digest. And by adding things like garlic and ginger, you're getting some anti-inflammatory properties, some different nutrients to kind of help you get through whatever illness or stressful situation you're in. So I'm just cooking the garlic and the ginger until it's like a little bit soft, fragrant. It's going to stick a little bit to the bottom of the pan, but that's okay because once we add in our broth, it's going to basically clean everything off the bottom. Okay, Zainab, do you mind just grabbing the rice?
Yes.
So just cooking this about 30 seconds to a minute tops. The ginger in this recipe is grated, and then the garlic is going to be minced. All right.
I just measured out like about a cup of rice. A
Yeah.
little bit more.
All right. And you can just dump that right in. So we have our cup of rice. I'm just going to mix it a little bit with the garlic and the ginger. And then we're just going to add 6 cups of veggie broth. So you can use whatever broth you want for this. You could do chicken broth, you could do beef broth. You can also do bone broth to get some extra protein. Or just leave it with veggie broth. You could even just do water if you wanted to. Like that is totally fine as well. So I have 6 cups in here. We're using low sodium veggie broth. It's because typically broths are really, really high in sodium. Don't really need that much sodium in a day. But this pot is going to make quite a few servings, so you can absolutely just make a big batch and have it for the week. Okay, I'm gonna give this a mix. I'm gonna let this come to a boil and then I'm going to reduce the heat so that it simmers. It's basically gonna simmer for the entire class until it breaks down. And the thing with congee is you want to stir it every once in a while. That helps the rice break down a little bit more and it also prevents the rice from sticking on the bottom. So I'm just gonna leave this guy alone. And next we're going to move on to the shepherd's pie. So with the shepherd's pie, we already boiled the lentils. So these are green lentils. The store I was at didn't have brown lentils. You could use whatever color lentil you have. You could also use, instead of lentils, if you wanted to keep it vegan, you could do crumbled tofu. Or if you wanted to do meat, it would just be your ground meat of choice, basically. So, besides the lentils, we're also going to have some veggies that go into this, right? That's what a shepherd's pie is. And then we're going to put mashed potatoes basically on top. Um, so Zainab, here are your potatoes.
Thank you.
And then
You
can just sit right there.
Okay.
And then I'm just going to grab my recipe here. So we have a pan and let me actually move this, Christina. Is that okay in terms of, yeah, okay. I want to make sure that you guys at home can see what we're doing. So I just turned on my pan. I'm going to add a little bit of oil to this. Okay. So with the potatoes, you'll see your recipe tells you to microwave the potatoes. That's not my favorite way to prepare potatoes for this type of preparation. I prefer to boil them. So that's what we did. We just boiled them. And now we're just going to mash them and add a little bit of milk to them as well for that topping.
I'm just gonna add a little bit of milk to clean it up a little bit.
Mhm. Okay, so I have my oil in here. I'm just going to add the onions. And I'm also going to add the garlic at the same time as well. So your shepherd's pie, we're actually using two methods of cooking. We're doing just stovetop, sauteing, and then we're going to finish it in the oven. Okay. All right. So we have our onions and garlic all coated in that oil. Hopefully it'll start cooking soon. So you want like medium high heat at this point. But we also don't want to burn anything. I'm kind of using the same spatula for the congee, but that's okay. Okay. So I'm just stirring the congee a little bit just to help it along. It still hasn't come up to a boil yet, so I'm still going to leave it on high heat and hopefully it'll come up to a boil soon. Okay, how are those potatoes
I think we're
coming?
gonna add a little bit more milk to.
So we also don't have a masher, and that's okay. We're improvising with a big spoon and a big and a big fork. Sometimes you have to improvise in the kitchen, and that is totally fine, right?
We're getting there.
We're getting there. So while we're waiting for the onions and the garlic to cook, I'm just gonna slice a couple of mushrooms. So we're just gonna do like kind of big slices like these guys. These are gonna cook down when we put them in the pan, but also in the oven as well. So the point of the of putting everything in the oven for this is basically to just let it kind of heat through, and also like heat up the potatoes that go on top. Um, but the majority of the cooking is going to be done on the stovetop. Okay.
This is a good arm workout.
Oh yeah, for sure. I have a couple more mushrooms. So it's about a cup of mushrooms. Again, with any of these veggie ingredients, it's up to you what you want to include. If you want to substitute something, right? Shepherd's pie is pretty much such a good recipe to use if you have like leftover veggies and don't know what to do with them. Because you can put whatever you want in here. Or if you have like canned or frozen veggies and you don't know what to do with them, you can absolutely use them in a shepherd's pie. Okay, so mushrooms are all cut up. Just gonna stir my onions and garlic. And I'm actually gonna turn down the heat for this congee just to a simmer. Um, so right now it's boiling just a little bit, and then we're just gonna let it cook down. So it's gonna take probably at least 40 minutes for this congee to be cooked down. Okay, yeah, those look good.
Yep, pretty much done.
Yeah. So the potatoes that go on top, they don't have to be perfect. And we're just adding milk. You could add butter if you wanted to, but it's not necessary for this recipe. Because you're getting a variety of different textures from this as well. Okay. So I'm gonna add next my carrots and celery to this. So this was two stalks of celery. I just did like itty bitty small pieces. And then I cubed the carrots for this. So this is for the shepherd's pie. Yeah. So we're gonna cook all of these veggies together.
Is shepherd's pie traditionally vegetarian or is there no meat in it?
Yeah, traditionally you would make it with ground meat. Um, I believe traditionally it's from like the UK, somewhere in the UK is my guess. Um, so traditionally, yeah, you would make it with meat. This is a vegetarian option for sure, but you could absolutely just substitute the lentils for meat. Yeah,
And
you're fine with the lentils. Okay, so this is cooking nicely. Okay, the other thing that we need to grab for this is frozen peas. So we have those in the freezer here. And again, like if you had just like your mixed bag of frozen veggies, like the one that comes with like peas and corn and green beans, you could absolutely just use that as your vegetable for this. So it doesn't have to be a complicated recipe at all. Um, okay, scissors. So we're just going to use 1 cup of the peas. And I'm just measuring them out now, but we're going to actually add them towards the end after we're done making our veggie mix. All right. Potatoes looking good. So I don't, you guys can kind of see. They're like a very thick mashed potato. Um, yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be like really fine, like if you were to eat just mashed potatoes alongside something else. Okay. All right. So we're gonna let this soften up a little bit more. We want the carrots especially to be a little bit soft. Um, because we're putting this in the oven, but it's only for 15 minutes, so there's not going to be a whole lot of time for them to cook in the oven, basically. So we want them to be as done as possible while they're up here on the stove top. And then just stirring our congee again. All right. So this recipe, the shepherd's pie, with all of the veggies, you're going to get a variety of different vitamins and minerals. You're going to get some vitamin A and vitamin C, and then a lot of antioxidants that are anti-inflammatory and antiviral, antibacterial. So this is a really good recipe to use during the winter to kind of help with any prevention, like cold and flu prevention. Or this is a really good recipe to make if you do have the cold or flu. Because it is hearty and comforting and it gives your body a lot of different nutrients, including protein. So the lentils are a good source of protein. We need protein to keep our immune system strong. So our immune system can actually create more immune cells to help fight off whatever is making us sick. And with this recipe too, like you can absolutely make this and freeze it. This freezes really well. So you could make a couple of different batches, freeze it, freeze part of it, and then just pull it out whenever you need it. Okay, I'm gonna add the mushrooms next. So these are cooking down quite a bit. The other veggies, we're gonna add the mushrooms. And then Zainab, do you want to add the thyme,
Yes.
the paprika, and then we're also
Mm.
gonna just do a little bit of salt and pepper as well. There we go.
Paprika.
Yeah,
That looks all right.
yeah, that should be fine.
And then a little bit of pepper.
A little bit of pepper, yeah. Just to season it again, the salt and pepper is really like to taste whatever is normal for you. Okay. And I'm just going to give this a mix to kind of cover all of the veggies with the paprika and the thyme. You could absolutely use fresh thyme if you wanted to in this. You could also add whatever other hearty herbs you wanted. So with this one, things like rosemary would work really well, oregano. Okay. So we're gonna let this cook down a little bit. We want these mushrooms to get nice and soft. Okay. All right. And then after our mushrooms cook a little bit, so 3 to 5-ish minutes is what your recipe calls for. We're gonna add a tablespoon of flour, a tablespoon of tomato paste, and then some broth to this. So it's about a cup of broth. So the purpose of the flour and the broth is to create kind of like a sauce to help thicken up the mixture. Um, and then we're going to add the peas, the lentils, mix it all together, and then put it in our baking dish, which we have over here. It might be a little too big, but we work with what we have, and that's okay. You can transfer this to whatever baking dish you have, or if your skillet is oven safe, you can also just leave it in the skillet, add the potatoes to the top of your skillet, and just throw the skillet in the oven. I don't love throwing skillets in the ovens because too many times I have forgotten that the handle is hot and it's a very easy way to burn yourself if you are not paying attention. So I prefer not to throw skillets in the oven, but if you feel confident in your ability to not grab the handle without any type of heat protection, then absolutely go for it. It saves on dishes too. Okay, these onions are softening. I'm sorry, the mushrooms are starting to soften, which is great. And you could also just leave out the mushrooms if you don't like mushrooms. That is totally fine. Okay, I'm just going to stir this congee a little bit. Kind of helping it along. I am going to turn up the heat just a little bit, just to encourage it to heat up a little. Okay. So this is pretty cooked down, pretty soft. So I'm just going to sprinkle in our flour, mix it up, and then I'm going to throw in the tomato paste as well. If you are gluten-free, you can absolutely just use a 1-to-1 gluten-free flour blend for this as well. Okay. Let's just mix this up. So just trying to coat the veggies in the tomato paste and the flour so it's kind of all evenly distributed throughout this mixture. Oh, okay. I'm spilling some things. Recipe. Okay. And then Zainab, do you mind just adding the vegetable
Sure.
broth to this? Thank you. So again, this vegetable broth, as it sits with the flour, it's going to start creating almost like a gravy, like a thickened sauce. Okay. Made a little bit of a mess, but that's okay. So I'm keeping the heat on like medium high as well, just to help the broth thicken. Okay, just gonna let this hang out a little bit. Gonna add a little bit of oil to this dish just so that it doesn't stick. You could also just spray it or do butter if you wanted to do butter. That's totally fine too. Yeah, give that a good stir. Okay. And then we can also throw in the peas right now too, so that they start to defrost before we add them to our dish to place in the oven.
You give that a stir as well, just to try and get the peas to defrost.
Okay, and the congee is just bubbling away. So to the congee, you'll see your recipe gives you a list of optional ingredients. So you can leave this as is. Just note if you use vegetable broth or chicken stock, beef stock, it's not going to have a whole lot of protein. If you do use bone broth, it will have a little bit more protein. But a good way to add protein is to either add like your chicken, beef, tofu to this. You could add chicken, beef while it's cooking. Um, that kind of gives it a nice flavor. Or if you have, for example, some rotisserie chicken or leftover beef or tofu, you can just heat it up and throw it on top. Okay, that mixture is looking nice. It's thickening up, so that's good. I'm just gonna let the peas kind of defrost a little bit more, and then we're gonna add the lentils. Then we're gonna mix everything in, throw it in our dish, and then throw the potatoes on top. So it is bubbling away. We do want it to bubble a little bit. That's going to help with the thickening process of the sauce. Okay. And then with the lentils, we just placed them in a pot of boiling water, and they just boiled away for, I think it was about 30 minutes. We just strained them out once they were nice and soft. And then that's pretty much it. Lentils are pretty easy. You could even do, if you wanted to, like you could do beans in this as well, or do like just canned beans as your protein. That works just as well. Okay. And hopefully this will all fit. Let's see. You could for this recipe, you don't necessarily need to. Um, Lentils don't have as hard of a like outer shell as beans do, so you don't necessarily need to soak them. But definitely like listen to whatever recipe you're using. For example, for like a like a lentil curry or a dal, the recipe might call for soaking your lentils overnight. And in that preparation, it might be better to soak your lentils overnight. But for something like this, where we're kind of trying to mimic meat, the texture of meat, it is better to not let the lentils get too mushy, which can happen if you soak them overnight. So really just like we just rinsed them and just threw them in a pot of boiling water. Um, Again, this is going to be a lot of a chewier texture than if you were to soak it and then it gets a lot mushier. Yeah. Okay, nice. So we're just going to cut the heat off of this. I'm just going to throw everything in here. Looks good, nice incorporated. The sauce is thickening. It's going to continue to thicken in our oven as well. I'm just going to bring this over here. Whoops, sorry.
I can hold it.
Ah, thank you. Okay. And the oven is preheated to 400 degrees, so it's pretty hot. And then Zainab, do you mind bringing over the potatoes? So you want this to be spread out evenly in your dish of choice, or if you're using your skillet in your skillet. Okay, and we can just throw
Yeah,
those.
now we're just gonna layer the pie with the potatoes. Try and get a smooth layer as much as possible.
It's supposed to be still because there's several different kinds, right? The brown, there's red,
Mhm.
red. We just need there's in terms of taste and texture, there's a big difference between like all the different ones.
Yeah, so is there a difference between taste and texture of the different colored lentils? I would say like texture, not necessarily. Taste, possibly a little bit. I think it depends on how sensitive your taste buds are. But I think texture, they're pretty similar amongst like all of them. Yeah.
Nutritional value there.
Yeah, I mean the different colors. So is there a difference in nutritional value between the different colored lentils? So different color compounds are going to give you different benefits. So for example, typically like your orange colored foods are really good for like eyesight and heart health. So like your orange lentils are going to have antioxidants that are helpful for that, compared to like your green lentils are great for like detox and liver health and gut health. Um, so there's like small differences like that, but nutritionally, they're all going to have protein. They're going to have fiber, all of them across the board. So like your major nutrients, they're going to be pretty consistent across the board. Yeah, like B vitamins, kind of all the same. Yeah. Great question, though. Wonderful.
For the
Yeah. Kanji?
um, if you were to add probably another tofu or if you were to add chicken or something, how would you recommend doing that? What would you like season? What would you
Yeah, so if we were to add like a chicken or a tofu, how would we prepare and season it? Yeah, so for chicken, you could just throw the chicken in here in the pot with the rice and the broth, and then the chicken will also season the rice. And then you'll have like the garlic and the ginger that we put in at the beginning, to season it as well. Or you can, like for a tofu, I wouldn't recommend adding your tofu to the pot because it tends to get too mushy. So preparing it separately for tofu, you could either do like a fried tofu, you could do a sauteed or a baked tofu. It's really like up to you. I would say like seasoning wise, for any of your proteins, for congee specifically, I like to keep it pretty minimal because there's so many different toppings that you can add that add flavor. You don't necessarily need to season your protein too much. So like one of the optional um, toppings that we have for this is sesame oil. So just doing a drizzle of sesame oil on your bowl of congee. You could do a drizzle of soy sauce. You could add oyster sauce if you wanted to. We're going to be doing the fried shallots. That's pretty traditional for congee, just having a little bit of fried shallot. We also have um, cilantro and green onion that we cut up, hanging out in the fridge as a topping. So you can get a lot of different flavors from the toppings. You don't necessarily need to add a whole lot to your proteins as you're cooking them, basically. Yeah.
This is all layered with the potato.
Wonderful. Okay, so let's throw this in the oven. So let's just open. Okay, so 400 degrees for about 15 minutes. What we're looking for is everything to be nice and warm. We might also do a little bit of broil at the end just to get a little bit of caramelization on the potatoes. I'm just going to set a 15-minute timer. Okay, cool. All right. So before Zainab gets started on the soup, I'm just going to start cutting up the shallots for the fried shallots. So basically cutting up the shallots pretty nice and thin as I can get them, right? I'm going to throw them in a little bit of oil. Different recipes are going to tell you different things in terms of how much oil you need. I like to do a pretty thin layer of oil, just so that there's not a whole lot of waste that happens. You could do a little bit more. The other thing you can do with like leftover oil from when you're frying like shallots or onions is you can just save it, stick it in the fridge, and then use it to flavor either dressing, sauces, or as you're cooking something, instead of using regular oil, you just use the shallot flavored oil. That's an option too. But we're going to do a pretty thin layer, and I might have to do a couple of different batches to fry them up. Basically, we're frying them until they're nice and brown. Going to put them on a plate lined with paper towels, and then as the shallots start to cool down, they will harden a little bit and get crispy. Okay. But Zainab, you can get started on the
So
soup.
we're going to be working on the lemon herb vegetable soup. It's also a great soup to have when you're unwell, and it's a very comforting food. The recipe calls for lots of vegetables like green beans and zucchini, carrots. There's also, you can optionally add some meat like chicken or leftover turkey if you have from Thanksgiving. Um, there's lots of modifications you can make to this recipe. You could use the leftovers from your kitchen, anything, just add it to a pot. It's a one pot recipe, so it's very easy. We're gonna start by turning on the heat. Uh, yeah, we're gonna keep it on medium heat, and we're gonna add some olive oil. We would use a pot, but the pot is being used for congee, so we're gonna work with what we have, and we're gonna use the wok. Just gonna add a little bit of olive oil. And then we are going to wait till it gets a little bit hot before we add we have the sliced onion, and we're gonna add the carrots as well and try to get them soft. And we're gonna need a spatula. So I'm gonna go ahead and add in the sliced onions. I tried to slice them as thinly as possible, just so that like I don't get big chunks of them when I'm drinking the soup. And then I'm also gonna add in the carrots and try to get them a little bit soft before adding in the rest of the ingredients. So this is gonna cook for about 5-ish minutes, is what the recipe calls for. So we'll see how long it takes actually.
Right, depending on your stovetop, your heat setting, might take a little bit more or less time. And that applies to everything too. Ovens are different, stoves are different. So just having a feel for when veggies are done, when they're soft, right?
And then once this is done, we're gonna add the garlic. And that's just to, add some fragrance as well.
And shallots are a little spicy, so I'm sorry if
No, my onion earlier was a lot spicier.
yeah, we said before the class we weren't gonna cry during the class, but it looks like it might happen.
Yeah, so we went ahead and like chopped all of the vegetables beforehand, so it's just easy to assemble and throw everything in the pot.
And that absolutely works at home too. When you're cooking things, just having everything chopped, assembled so that, if you're adding things to a hot pan, you're not risking the, burning anything by you're in the middle of chopping something, you have to check on the pan. If you have everything ready to go, it makes it a lot easier to cook everything.
In this soup recipe, it has a lot of fiber because of the green beans, and it also has carrots, and it has a lot of antioxidants, and such as be adding zucchini as well. So It's just a good heart healthy option because we're going to be adding low sodium as well. So um, we try to stick to low sodium recipes because it's better for the heart.
And the garbanzo beans that we have are not low sodium because they didn't have low sodium garbanzo beans at the store I went to. Um, if you have that option, I would highly recommend that. Just getting a low sodium bean when you're at the store. If just regular sodium is your only option, you can always rinse them really well out of the can to kind of help get rid of any sodium that's lingering on them.
And yeah, that's another we're adding the garbanzo beans, which is a good source of protein. Like I said, you could also add chicken or turkey as well. And I would probably add them after adding my vegetables, I would probably add the meat to and then add the broth at the end to boil. And softening up a little bit.
Yeah. So I'm adding my shallots to my oil. I'm trying to do like a thin layer of these guys, just so that they cook pretty evenly. So I'm likely just going to do multiple batches with the shallots that we already have. Um, we're just looking for them to get nice and brown.
The congee is looking nice and it looks like it's thickening up.
Yeah. So the rice and the congee has absorbed most of the liquid. So at this point, I'm just gonna keep stirring it to help the rice grain break down. And we'll show you guys at the end, but the veggie broth that we got is, I think it has carrots in it because it is very orange. So the congee is gonna look nice and orange. Typically it's, white like rice. But I guess it depends on what you're using for your liquid.
For the carrots, I also chop them into thin slices, but you can chop it however you want. You could chop it into um, like moon shaped or however you want. Again, I like my soup to not have huge chunks of vegetables, so it's all based on preference.
Yeah, I don't like the chunky soup either.
Yeah.
But some people do, and that's okay. I'm moving around the shallots a little bit just to help prevent them from burning or sticking.
I'm gonna go ahead now and add in the garlic. I also chopped these finely. This is 1 to 2 cloves of garlic. And this is just gonna add some fragrance to the soup.
Okay, my shallots are turning nice and brown, so I'm just gonna put them onto um, a paper towel lined plate. So the paper towel is gonna help soak up any excess oil from this, and then as they cool down, they'll start to crisp up a little bit.
Those look nice and yummy.
Yummy, yes.
I think now I'm going to go ahead and add in, well, I first have to measure out 4 cups of um, vegetable broth.
That should be 4 cups
Oh, yes.
in the
Okay. This is
container.
already 4 cups. So just need to pour this in. I'm just going to give this a quick stir. And wait for this to get a little bit hot before I add the zucchini.
Okay, why don't we turn up the heat a little bit?
Yeah.
Help that.
And then I'm going to add the chickpeas, the garbanzo beans, the zucchini, and the green beans. And the green beans I also chopped into like 1-inch pieces.
And then we also have some baby spinach as well to add to it.
Mhm.
Reach the end here. I'm just gonna cut your lemon so it's ready to go.
Thank you. Yeah, now I'm going to go ahead and add in the garbanzo beans and the green beans, as well as the zucchini.
Uh,
The recipe calls for 1 small zucchini. I think we had a large zucchini, so I might just add half of this because it doesn't seem like we
need the entire thing.
yeah.
So it's all right. If you're releasing the chickpeas, if you're just
Oh no, they're the canned chickpeas, the canned ones, and they're cooked. So we just added that. I first rinsed it, and then I added them directly.
I mean, if you wanted to, you could cook chickpeas from scratch, just from dry. It would take a lot longer, but that's always an option too.
So the reason why we rinsed the beans was because it had sodium, and we couldn't find a low sodium option, so we wanted to kind of rinse off as much as possible before we added it to, because we're trying to keep it like a healthy soup, which is why we rinsed it.
Mhm.
But you could also just add it like is like it was.
Yes. So using low sodium broth to keep it heart healthy. Yep. Yeah, oftentimes, we have sodium added to so many food items where you don't necessarily need it. So if you ever have the option, for example, with like broth or beans or for example, like cheese, if you can find like a low sodium cheese, it's one way to cut down on how much sodium you're eating. The general recommendation is to eat less than 2,300 milligrams of sodium per day. And when we look at what people are actually eating, like sometimes it's as high as 4,000 milligrams, which can, impact your risk of developing heart disease and high blood pressure and all of the things. So if there are any ways that you can cut down on your salt intake, it's a good idea to do so. Yeah.
I wouldn't get the regular, broth.
Uh-huh.
But seeing the low sodium, because I was thinking that if I get the low sodium, I can add salt anyway. So would it be better just again?
Regular. So
And then add the salt for this food.
yeah, so
Not add salt at all.
yeah, is it better to get just the regular broth and then versus the low sodium and then add salt? So I think it also depends on your taste buds too. Because even with like the low sodium, so like let's just look at this label here. So this veggie broth, it has 40 milligrams of sodium per cup, right? Typically with your full sodium broths, you can even have like 800 milligrams of sodium. That's a lot of sodium, right? So you could control it even more by just adding your own salt and not adding that much, right? It's still like it's not quite the same thing. Yeah. I think it also depends on your taste buds. And the thing with low sodium too is each individual person is accustomed to a certain saltiness level. And when switching to a low sodium lifestyle, things can taste a little bit bland, but the reality is your taste buds do adjust after a couple of weeks, and things that didn't taste as salty before now taste a lot saltier. So it's really just like what you're accustomed to. Yeah.
We're still waiting for this soup to come to a gentle boil.
Okay. Almost there.
Yeah.
Okay. This congee is pretty much done. So I'm just going to give it another nice mix. And I will plate up the congee. So for those of you at home, you can see kind of what a prepared bowl of congee looks like with the toppings. Okay, and our shepherd's pie is done. It's nice and hot, bubbling a little bit. I'm just going to turn on the broil a little bit just to get some caramelization on top. Um, maybe for like a minute or two. I'm going to keep an eye on it so that it doesn't burn. Okay.
Yeah, once it starts to boil, I would typically add any choice of meat if you wanted to at home at this time, just to let that cook in with the soup and give it flavor. And we want to wait till the zucchini and the green beans get a little soft as well.
Mhm.
Usually we would cover that, right?
Yeah. But let's see if we have a lid,
We
actually.
might have maybe, oh, the big one. Might work.
Yeah, this should work.
That definitely helps
Yeah.
the process. And turn this on. Not quite brown yet. We're just gonna let it let it chill for a little bit longer in there. Okay. Then we're going to cut up some parsley too, to add as a topping for our shepherd's pie and then our soup. And I'm going to do kind of a fine mince on this, just so that there's not a whole lot of large leaves. The shallots are almost done. Smells so good in here.
Like there's the Italian parsley and the regular parsley. What would you say is that?
So what's the difference between Italian parsley and regular parsley? So Italian parsley, also known as flat leaf parsley, is what we have here. So it's a flat leaf. It's a lot more delicate. This is the Italian. Your regular parsley is typically curly, so it's has a rougher texture. I would say like if you're using parsley as a topping, you want it to be kind of fine, right? So using a flat leaf parsley is going to be a little bit better than a curly leaf parsley, but again, it's really up to you, like what you like in terms of textures. If you want something with a little bit more bite, use the curly parsley. If not, use the finer Italian parsley. A little bit longer. The potatoes are starting to brown a little bit on the edges. Smells really good.
Let's check on the soup now and see how it's doing.
Wonderful. Okay, our shallots are done. We're just gonna let them cool down a little bit so that they crisp up.
Vegetables still need a little more time to soften. So I'm gonna cover it up again and reduce the heat a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just gonna grab a bowl so I can plate up the congee. So you guys at home can see what it looks like. I'm just gonna do a little bit in here. Let me grab my cut up cilantro and green onions. So these guys we're just hanging out in the fridge. So we're gonna add these. Yeah, so it looks yellow because of the veggie broth, but it is white rice. Yes, you are correct. And let me just, okay, I'm gonna take out the shepherd's pie. It's looking nice and bubbly.
Yep.
So here's our shepherd's pie. Christina, maybe you can zoom in on this a little bit so people can see the caramelization on top. I'm just gonna hit this with a little bit of sesame oil. So with any like if you're adding sesame oil as like a finishing touch to a food, it would be best to use a toasted sesame oil so you get more of that flavor. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a drizzle just to get that extra flavor. And then top it with the crispy shallots. And again, like you could add whatever protein you want to this, but that's what the congee looks like. Christina, do you need me to move at all? We're good? Okay. So again, it's orange because of the veggie broth. Typically it would be white. All right. I have that.
We're also gonna go ahead and juice half of a lemon. This is also gonna go inside the juice or in the soup for a little bit more flavor.
It's looking good. I'm just going to add some parsley to the shepherd's pie as a wonderful topping. Wonderful.
And I'm just gonna go ahead and add this in, as well as a handful of spinach. I'm just gonna stir that in.
Wonderful. That looks really good. Very colorful.
Yeah. It's like a garden soup.
It is a garden soup.
Still want the zucchini to be a little softer.
Okay. Well, we can continue to cook it,
it.
but basically, for those of you at home, this is what the soup looks like. Very colorful. It smells delicious. You guys can't smell it at home, but you can just believe us. Um, so this is what we're left with. The shepherd's pie, nice and hot, caramelized on top. We have our toppings for the congee and then our soup. And then we're gonna eat, but hopefully you guys at home get to try these recipes. Again, make them your own, add whatever you want to them. And thank you so much for joining us. Happy holidays, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you guys. It was really fun.